Hi everyone. I had a special request to do this particular demo. It's going to be on the tracing system of a Rebelle 6 and 7. It was originally changed from Rebelle 5 to 6, and Rebelle 4 and 5 we used an influence layer that was based off of the tracing layer. Now I could put that link up now to a previous tracing demo I did quite a while back, but now we're going to make a new one and update it. This one works by layers being in the group. Whatever layers are in that group, they will be influenced by that tracing layer. Then if we want to do anything separate, all we have to do is make a layer outside of that group, and we could use freehand to adjust or modify our painting, not based on the photograph. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, first we need to bring our pictures in that we are going to trace from them. Now, one thing very important before we get started. I've been doing wildlife photography and art forever, for probably 40 years now, and that's all I have to my name. So what I want you to realize is the techniques and the effects I am doing. This way you can apply it to any subject matter and any style you wish. This is just the suggestions on how we could do things, and then use these same techniques to create your own painting from your own photographs. Let's get started. Okay, before we start tracing our photos, we need to bring them in and import them. Just a little bit of background information. I'm working on a 16 by 20 at 300 DPI, and then I will be importing 12 by 8 images, which are actually horizontal at 300 DPI. So they're going to come out a little wee bit smaller than the width of our canvas. What we need to do is go up here in the upper left where it says File, click on that, and when it drops down, go to Import Image, and when you click on that, you'll go to wherever they're at within your system, and then wherever you have them stored, whatever folders you have, click on whatever photo or photos you need to open, and then just click on it and hit Open, and this is what happens. If you like it where it's at or the size it's at, then just hit OK, but I already have them all set up for us over here, so I'll just hit cancel, and that's it. That's how you would bring your photos in. Okay, now that we got our photographs in, these are the ones we're going to be working from. This one and this one will go together, and this one. These two will go together, and we're going to create our ocean and just the splashing waves. These were all taken at Assateague National Seashore, and I often go down there to photograph migrating snow geese. Now what's interesting is I pulled all of these photos together to show how we can arrange a painting that is kind of like unrelated photographs in a way, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. Now this one here is the same thing, but now just quickly what we're going to do with these two. This one is a nice interesting photo, but what it is there's a ton of space in the foreground that's just nothing more than an out of focus sandbar. That was because it was a low light situation right at sunrise. Now it's a very hard angle light coming, low angle, hard straight from our right, across the waves and inland. So that's the kind of lighting we have to portray throughout the painting. Now this one is obviously roughly the same. It's just a slightly different angle, but we're going to use this water from here down, and then we're going to even chop off this part of the sandbar completely off of our painting, so we'll just be using this splash more or less. You'll see how we're going to arrange these. And then now with the geese, remember our light is coming strong from the right, so we need to do that with our geese. Okay, in our geese photo, this is what we'll have. Now I picked out some geese that we could use, but the light is coming strong from the left. So all we have to do is actually go to our Move and Transform tool, and then this button right here, which is just flop, flip horizontally, press that, and I will now have my light coming strong from the right. Now I picked these photos out because I knew I could flop it and have a completely different light angle. But now the issue is here, I just hit the OK. This particular goose right here its entire head is in its own shadow of a wing, and this is kind of a little bit more of a problem that you just can't see the head of this one compared to this one and this one. So what I did was I pulled out another photo, and then now this one you could see good, this one you could see good, but now this one you can't. So because of such a low angle sun, they were flying the opposite direction of the shoreline that we're going to be using. It's the exact same sun. But now what I want to do is just more or less pick out the geese I want to use so I don't have to deal with the heads being in their own wing shadows. But first we got to flip this one, and we will just go to that layer now. That's this one right here. And then hit the transform move tool, hit our flop horizontal, and then just hit OK. And then that's all we need. Now all of our geese are flying with the bright sunlight coming from a low angle right. Okay, now that we have our geese in the correct lighting, a low angle light, strong from the right, you can even see they do have a natural orange glow to them from what would be called the magic hour of photography. Now I'm going to turn these two off, and we're going to first put in our horizon line, and that would be this one first. This one is the one we're going to crop off. We're going to cut out from here right across in here up. We definitely don't want the sandbar in this particular picture, and I'll show you why. This is just a little bit of thought of how we can put pictures together. I'm going to go up to here at my eraser tool, and I'm going to click a soft edge right here, this round one here, and it's very soft. And then I'm going to go ahead and erase this out about right in here, and then I'm just going to take out the water. Just want to make sure I take out that sandbar, and if I have a nice light transition, that's all I need. Now I could go to a hard one, much bigger, and then we'll just take this out real quick manually. Okay, now this is the part of this picture I'm going to use, but we're only going to be using this splash right in here because I'll take this particular sandbar off the bottom of the painting. There's no point in having just an out of focus gob or even just a gob of brown without no texture or shape to it at all. Now we're going to put that one aside. We're going to open this one up, and I'm going to take it down a little bit and move it up so we can see what we're doing. And then I'm going to select that layer. We're going to go up to our move tool. We're going to move this one down, put it roughly where it's at, and we can take it off of the painting also and make it bigger right there. Take it a little bit more off. We just want a lower horizon line in the painting, and that'll give you the feeling that you're looking up at the geese. Okay, now we're going to hit OK there. And then now this is where this one's going to stay. Now we'll open up our other one, and we will go to the move tool on it. Once I select that layer, and now I can move it down. But first, let's make it to size first, just to give us a start. All right there. Now we can move it down, and we're going to move it off. If I move it down too far, I'll show you what I want to cover. See, this sandbar right here is from the previous photo, but I want to cover that up. So I want to do about right there, but then we could move this one up again a little bit further because I want to take this one up as far as I can so we use as much of it as we can, about right there. And then I'll hit OK there, and then I'll go back to my original photo, hit the move tool on that, and make sure that I'm not losing too much of it. Yeah, see, I can move it up a little bit, and we'll leave it about right there. Now I covered up as much sand as possible using both photos and the edge to my advantage. I'm gonna make this one a little wee bit bigger just to take it off of the photo, off the painting, I'm sorry. And about right there. And that's it, and I'll hit OK. Now there's our shoreline that we're going to use. This will literally kind of give you the feeling that you're out in the water, even though I was not. I was shooting with a telephoto, small telephoto, up the shoreline, and that's how I was getting alongside the actual shoreline itself. I wasn't in the water. Now, these will be right where they're at, so now we could leave those there. Now what we're going to do is go to our geese and we'll set those up. Okay, now that we have our shoreline done, this one is on top. We need to keep this layer on top because it is covering up, even though it's down at the bottom, it's covering up the sandbar. So with the layer sequence, we need to keep it on top, and then it will cover up and it blended in rather nicely with that soft edge that we'll be able to still manipulate some things when we start tracing too and work from different areas. And then now we can just leave our shoreline on, and we'll go to the geese photos. We'll open up this one first. And again, remember, now that we have our lighting angle right, this is the one that I had a problem with right here because the head is completely in its own wing shadow. So in this photo, I'm not going to use these two, I'll only use this one. And I like to work with odd numbers also. So this way I'll have 3 geese instead of just a pair. It might be able to arrange them a little bit more interesting. So now what I'll do is I'll show you 2 different ways to do this. Now, for the most part, you can even just leave these photos the way they are now because you're only going to be working from the goose itself. But if you want to make things a little bit less confusing, then you could also crop down or cut out just what you want to use, and that's it. Now, what I'll do with this one is use my selection tool. That would be right up here under the magic wand selection, and then right here is the magic wand. And because this particular photograph has such an even blue sky, I can just click on it and it will select it, and that's it. What it did was outline my geese. That's the only thing that's staying there. And then I can eliminate the blue sky itself just by hitting delete, and that's it. Now my blue sky is gone, but that's only if I have a nice even background that is not like any other color that is similar to my subjects. Now what I'll do is hit Control D, and that will leave me with just the geese. But what I'm going to do now is take my erase tool, and I will literally just erase these out because I'm not using these at all. And that's it. There's one goose that I'll be able to use. And then now I'll leave that one go. I'll turn it off and turn the next one on. And now these are the 2 geese right here that I want to use in this photo. And I'll eliminate that one because now this one is the same one we just used, but now this time it has a shadow going across its head. So I won't use this one. I'll go to that layer. But now what we could do is just take out the around the geese itself, and we'll just cut it out just to make it less confusing, and then we'll just erase everything else. We're going to leave the blue there, and that's all we'll do. And that will just use that one just the way it is. And then now we'll take these 3 geese and place them in such a way that they will be flying along the shore. Now they're in the same lighting. You can see what I'm up to, that it's a hard light from the right. And now what I'll do is make the geese a little wee bit bigger just to be able to see them nice, but now I can arrange them in a way. Now if I want to separate these 2, then I could position each goose the way I want, but what I would have to do is duplicate this layer and then erase one from one layer and one from the other layer. And then that way I would have 3 separate geese that I can move anywhere I want. Okay, you know what? Let's go ahead and separate these 2 geese. It'll just give us more opportunities to arrange them the way we want. And what we will do is first duplicate this layer. Now you could do this a couple different ways. You could go up to the layer drop down and then just hit duplicate layer right here, and then the keyboard shortcut is Control-Shift-D, or I like to right click on that layer because if I just chose that layer, I'm working on that layer, then I right click and down here duplicate layer. That's what I'll do. And then now we got 2 copies of the same thing. So the first one, we will separate them out. We'll move this one up here, and this one I'll go back to my magic wand. Now, if you ever need to cut these out manually, depending on what you're cutting out, if you have to cut out your subject manually, then I will put up a demo that takes that more in depth. Now it's an older demo, but it would still apply to any version of Rebelle there is. I'm going to select the blue area and then delete it out. And then now what I'll do is just go ahead and erase the rest. Now there's a blue haze going around that because I didn't have the tolerance set too high, but that's okay because I'm gonna manually erase anyway. And we won't get into that for now. And then what I'll do is deselect, Control D, and then just erase this out. And we're gonna erase this one anyway. Well, we'll keep the bottom one, I guess, looks like. And that's it, that's one. And then I'll go to the next one and then hit the magic wand and do the same thing, hit delete. And then this time we'll save the top one. Control D to deselect. Otherwise that's right here too, Control D. That would be this right here if you want to just use the icons. Then we're going to go to our eraser. This time we'll keep the top one. Okay, there we got 3 individual geese that we can put anywhere we want. Now, for whatever reason, if you lose what goose is on what layer or what object is on what layer, then all you have to do is hit Control Shift and you'll get this hamburger sign. And what it'll do is if you click on that goose, it'll show you what layer that goose is. So if I go back over and hit this one, for example, now that one's on this layer. And this one is in the middle layer. So now I can find what layer instantly they are on if they are individual layers. Now what we could do is enlarge them a little bit and we'll reposition them. We're going to do that next. Okay, if we put them in the position just right, I'm going to go to my move tool. We'll start with this one and then we are going to position it. And I can even twist it or rotate a little bit, but we're going to make it bigger. Just grab one of the corners. And that, we'll rotate it just a little bit. And then that would look not too bad right there. Now we'll leave that one there for now. We're going to also size it up. I'll make it a little bit bigger. And we'll leave it right there. Just enter that. Down here at the bottom, hit OK. And then we'll make the other two just as big. And then this one we can even have an arrangement. We'll have the ability to move them around and just see what we like the best since they're on their own individual layers. About right there. Hit OK for that one. And the last one, we will size it up. Grab our transform move tool. Take it down bigger. And then now this one, if you want to really experiment with your objects, then you can even put one in front of the other. Since this one is on the top layer, I can make it a little bit bigger and then put it over top of one of the other ones. Just to make it look like a flock or a pattern that they're not all in the perfect same plane. They are arranged going into the painting. I would say about right there. And then we'll leave that one there for now. But remember, we could move them around, change things, hit OK down at the bottom, and that's it. Now, they're a little bit deceiving because they're just up against a white background. Once we take the gray all the way up, then that's when we'll really notice the difference, and that's when those white geese are going to really jump out at you, just like the white waves down here at the bottom. So then we'll have some hard white here, hard white in here, and then white up here, and it'll be the opposite. And that will kind of get you moving across the painting in a diagonal manner. Okay, now next we need to group our layers. Now what we have to do is, the old term was whether or not it was an influenced layer. Now that means if you would be able to pull the color straight from the photograph as you're painting. Now that is changed to now just keeping those particular layers that you paint from within the same group of the photographs you want to work from. So now what I did was put a freehand layer up here on top, right here. This one is going to stay outside of the group just to get us started. And then we'll pick the first geese layer, and then go all the way down to the bottom where it says painting number 1. That will be my first influence layer we'll paint from, and all the rest will just be the photographs we're going to be working from. So now what I need to do is hold down my shift key, click on painting number 1. Now all of those are selected, hit Control G, and now they're all within that group. So now if I go down to painting and create more layers, then I will have them as an influenced layer that I will be able to pull colors from all of these photographs within that group. Okay, next we're going to do some practice painting just to see how this will work and what colors we'll be able to pull from the photographs themselves. And then we will also just keep the painting put together in a way that we could adjust it, manipulate it, change it, and then also we'll do some freehand later. Let's go ahead and start practice our painting strokes just to see how we're going to do this. Okay, let's check out some of our settings first. What we need to do is go up to Edit and then drop down to Preferences, and we're going to go into the Color section, and then right here where it says Tracing Color Sample Size, you could have 1 pixel, 3 by 3 pixel square, or a 5 by 5 pixel square block of where you're going to pull your colors from your photograph. Now I'm working on a 300 dpi, which is pretty tightly packed, dense pixels. So I'm going to go with the 5 by 5, and then that is how many total of 25 pixels that I will be pulling my color from anywhere I touch down with my brush on the photograph. So now remember, no matter how big your brush is, you're only going to be pulling out colors from the very center of the brush. Now if you want to use the crosshairs on your brush, you can. That would be back to Edit, Preferences, go back to the brushes, the tools, and then if you want to change any of these cursor shape with direction, or cursor shape with crosshair, you could choose that one and it'll show you exactly where you're going to be pulling the colors out from. Now I just personally leave mine on cursor shape with direction. That's where I'll leave it. Okay, let's take a look and see how we're going to paint this. Okay, number 1, I am going to use only default brushes, so you don't have to worry about coming up with any special brush concoction or anything else. This will be just straightforward, and we're just going to use what brushes we have to complete this. Now I may import another brush or two from another set of acrylic or watercolor brushes that will give us what we need to complete this painting, but that will be something we will also go over in depth. Now my training from the Art Institute of Pittsburgh way back in the early 80s was in oil painting, acrylic paintings. We worked from the background to the foreground, and that's how we painted. So we started with the background and then overlaid or overlapped everything on top of that, just to keep our nice smooth lines, straight lines clean. We didn't try to paint around objects, but if you want to do that, that's fine, that's okay. Now let's go ahead and start. What we'll do is we'll do some practice painting, but at the same time, we'll be getting some of the background done. Okay, let's start painting our background. Now what I'm going to do is change painting 1 to sky, and that's where we'll start. And then what I want to do first is we're going to work on this top photo here. Now I could turn the other one off, and then we'll be working from this photo right here to start with. Now you can only have one tracing layer at a time. So if we make this the tracing layer, this photograph is what we're going to be working from. Then we go up here, and right here where it says T, click on that, and that is now our tracing layer. We will be pulling our colors from this particular photograph right here. And what we're going to do is take this sky and continue it on up off the edge of the painting. And now I'll go back to my sky layer, and then once I start painting, anywhere I touch down on this photograph, I am going to be grabbing that particular color of paint 5 by 5 pixels, averaged out. So if I go to the photo, let's take the opacity down to 40 so we can actually see what we're painting. Now I will still be grabbing 100% of the color, even though it is down to 40% of opacity. Go back to my sky layer. Now we're ready to paint. Anywhere I touch down on this, I'm going to be grabbing that particular color. So each time I touch down, pull, I'm grabbing that color. But now the last color I chose, that is the color that will stay right here, is my most previous color I used. Then what I will do is keep painting away, and I'm just going to fill this up. Now keep in mind, we could mix and blend, but we could just put down color first, and then we could mix it up any way we want to, because we're going to do the sky also. But first we're going to fill in all of this white. And now I'm just going to keep on grabbing color from my photograph and pulling it up into the white spot of the entire sky that we're stretching into a vertical. Now I could paint right underneath the geese. That's just a photograph of the geese. We'll eventually color them in too. And then now what we could do is, you could see it's getting darker. I pulled out darker gray over here compared to the center over here. Now if we want, we can put it on, let's try paint and blend. And this is an interesting combination. That's this one right here. I'm going to click on that. Now what this does is I'll be able to paint the color as long as I press down hard. But then as I leave off pressure, I'm going to be able to blend. So now you can see I'm lightly pressing down, and then now I am literally blending the colors already put down. So if I want a smoother blend of the sky, then I could lightly press down and I'll be blending in the multiple colors I already put down. So I could get a nice even wash of sky. Now I'm pulling more color out. You can see it's darker on the edges of the photograph. So we'll do that as we go. But I'm still pulling color out. Now I could see right here is a little wee bit of blue I left that I didn't erase from one of the bird photos. That's no problem. I'm not going to grab that because that's not made as the tracing layer. So just to point that out. Now here's the last color I use. So if I grab towards the middle, I'm going to be grabbing a lighter color, and I'm going to take that all the way off. Let's go ahead and finish this. Okay, let's see where we're at. Now what we'll do is go back to our photo and take the opacity slowly back up to 100, and then just see where our paint line is compared to our tree line. Now they are very close. So what I want to do is take the painting down a little bit further. I'll take it back down to about 30. And then what we're going to do is take our paint back down a little bit further, go back down to the sky, and while I have that particular photo as the tracing layer, I'm going to take the color back down just like this past my tree line, so it's definitely behind my tree line. And I still have it on paint and blend, and I think that would work the best when you're working with multiple colors if you want to blend them as you paint, because remember, if I lighten up the pressure, then I'll be blending what colors I have already down. But if I start pressing hard, then I'll be just picking up that one individual color and laying it down. Now that is it. Now this is turning brownish or just different only because we're seeing the sandbar, the beach, through the paint, through the photograph. So if I turn it off, now that's what we got. Now we can clean all this up with the blend, and we will do that, but we're just trying to block things in for now. Just like that. But we have a ways to go yet. We're going to put fog in, all kind of things. Just that low mist. But we will do them on individual layers, so if we want to change them, or more importantly, if we don't like it, we could just turn off that layer and then see how it compares. Now let's put this layer back on. Now what I'm going to do next is make a layer above this sky, and we'll call it the tree line and distant tree line. But I want to show you something first, compositionally. Again, just a way that we could better our photographs that we're using. Okay, here's what I wanted to quickly go over. Now I wanted to zoom in just a little bit and then go to our photo that is the tracing layer. I'm going to take it back up to 100. And right in here, right in here, this is a distant tree line, a good ways out, but it's kind of like a medium blue. And then this tree line right here is fairly close, and it's all browns. Completely different value, completely different color. But what's happening though is they're kind of running together right along this line, and that is only because of my position on the beach, the angle, lens, could be any number of reasons. But what is important is there's what I would consider a nasty tangent there. Now let me show you what I'm talking about. I'll zoom back out, and then now I added a group just to help us, and that is two shapes. There's a red one and a blue one. In an illusion sense, the blue one looks closer because it could be bigger, could be considered closer, but it's hard to tell because they share a line, just like our two tree lines back here. And what that does is kind of staples them together, for lack of better words, and you can't really tell which one's in front of the other. But if I go to the red layer and then go to my transform tool and move this one in front of the blue, now you could immediately tell which one's in the foreground. So my point is, what I'm going to do is go up here, and when I make this tree line, I'm going to make it a little wee bit higher just to make it above, so this line runs into that line and not right with it. And then this way, it'll look like a more closer grass and tree line than this distant tree line way out here. And this way, I know that it won't be so confusing, and it will also give it more depth because then you'll have multiple layers of just planes going back into your painting. Let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, we're going to go ahead and make another layer. I'm just going to call it tree line. And then we're going to do pretty much all of this on this layer. Now keep in mind, the more layers you make, the more options or choices you'll have later. And then obviously we could put all of these layers together on one and do any kind of touch-ups we want, or blend different areas together. There's always options. But what we're going to do is go ahead and start working with that. And I'm going to go back up to my photo. We're still working from the same photo. And then right here now, up here, I'm changing. I'll go back down to 30 this time. And then we are going to start painting, but we got to change the size of our brush. I'm going to paint that distant tree line first. I'm going to have to make it a little bit darker just so I could see what I'm doing. And then we'll paint it out. And I'm going to just let that blend down into the water. And then once we start painting all the water, we could also then touch things up by hand. And you'll see what I mean later. First, we're going to go back to our oil brushes. And then we'll use even the same brush. We'll go down to the tree line. And now I'm going to load it up again a whole way, but then I'm going to take the size down. I think about right there. We'll just work it a little bit at a time. And then leave everything else as is. And I am going to leave it on blend, paint and blend. Now this is where I'm going to be getting my colors from. You can see the distant tree line starting to come about, and I'll take it right up to here. And then now keep in mind, I could take the brown colors back over this. So this is just a distant one, and we'll take it off into the mist that's going to be the water eventually. And then again, we could soften some of this up later. And then now I'm going to do the distant tree line. And if you want, we can enlarge it even more just so we can see what we're doing. That's one thing great about digital. But now I'm going to make this a little wee bit bigger. So all I have to do is drag these browns up into my sky a little bit. And then what this will do is make this tree line a little wee bit bigger, a little bit taller. And I'm just taking a little wee bit at a time because I want my colors to vary, so I don't keep using the same color for a large area of the tree line. And you can see there's shadows involved, and we'll again retouch it later. And I'll just do this real time. Fast forward if you want to. And I'm pressing hard. Might even be able to hear it. Only to grab a lot of paint. I'm really not doing too much blending yet. But then what I want to do is just get me started This is kind of just blocking in your shapes right now. All right, I'll go ahead and finish this. Okay, let's see what we got. All we have to do is turn off our photo. That's this one right here. And then now that's what we got so far. There's our distant tree line. We could even make this foreground tree line even a little bit higher, but that could be changed in time. It's on its own layer. Now what we'll do next is I think we'll start the water and the beach on its own layer. Then that way we could start using the mist and what have you to carry up over so we don't disturb that distant tree line. And then again, like I said, we could merge all of these layers into one and just to go ahead and see. But let's go ahead and start the water next. Okay, we'll make a new layer. We'll just call it distant water. And now we'll be working from the same photo. So I will put it back on. And then I'm going to take it up a little wee bit so I could see that distant water a little bit better. Now, it might be a little bit tougher to paint because we're going to be painting almost the same values as the photo. We're going to give this a try. And I'm going to put the also the shoreline, just the beach, on this layer also. So we're going to pretty much do this area right in here on this layer. And then we'll see if we could even put more on. But then, like I said, sometimes it's better to have as many layers as you can, and it'll give you options later. Okay, I'm going to zoom way in, and I'm just going to start roughing out. Now, what we could do is I'm going to plan on making some of this white water the same orangey glow as the geese are. So what I will do is put that on a separate layer also. Or we could even just freehand it. That depends on how brave you want to get. We're going to start right here now. And I'm going to just start. And if you have a lot of texture that's quite a bit change of values and colors, then the best thing you could do is touch down and drag a little wee bit as often as possible. You don't want to keep on using that same color over and over, or you're just going to have a big gob of solid color and that's it. And in this particular case, it's nice to be able to just enlarge the photo really big. You're painting your canvas, and we don't have too many lines here, directional water lines, like we do in the foreground, that there's definitely patterns of the water that we'll put in there. But this is just kind of like a real subtle hint of water, because the mist has it shrouded pretty good. And I'm just using the same brush. I very well may even just use the same brush the whole way through until we get to the end when we have to do a splash. But we can mix it up here and there. But sometimes if you do this painting like this with the same brush, it really gives a nice effect to the painting itself, where you just vary the size of your strokes and paint and everything else. Then we'll use a spatter brush later to make our splashes. And you can see the paint starting to pile up, which isn't too bad. It's actually pretty nice. And again, while I'm doing this, all of this is going to depend on what kind of photographs you're going to be working from. And that's going to be the big difference. And we could leave these splashes distant with very little texture and detail. And I'm lightening up my pressure every now and then just to blend certain areas where I could see it might benefit if I blend it. Now I'm already coming to the foreground splashes, and I might leave those on a separate layer. And then that way we could take it over this layer, but not worry about disturbing what we already have. And that's really nice. If you're just new to painting or don't want to have to rework a whole entire area because of something happening, that way we could get free with our splashes too. And then when we make the tracing layer, it is locked in place. That's why the automatic lock comes on. It will stay where we have it. And then again, once we have this pretty well blocked in, we could go back and do some freehand work. Just blend some things out, touch some things up, change a little bit. I'm going to drop down in size a little bit so I could get inside of these water waves going up on shore. And then we have to make sure we have to watch what we're painting so we don't paint any browns over blues or blues over browns. Might start to distort the painting itself. And then, like I said, we could straighten up the edges. If there's a hard edge of water somewhere, of a wave coming up onto the beach, and we could straighten out that edge without even a photograph. And again, I'm touching up and down as often as I can. And even though I'm on a separate layer and I'm on a layer that's in front of my previous layer, I'll still pick up the colors that I used for the previous layer. So in other words, they'll blend in and fuse together, merge together rather nicely. Okay, we'll finish this little wee bit out. We'll see what we got. Okay, and then all I gotta do is turn off the photo. And that's what we got so far. The water's starting to get blocked in now. And then here's the coming up on the beach. And then here's our water. And again, you can see how blocky it is. So we're gonna have to work with that. But right now we're just blocking in our shapes. And then there's even some areas where I missed because I couldn't tell the difference between what I've already painted and the photograph itself. But we're gonna go ahead and keep on working on this. And I'll get some of this blocked in speed painting. And hopefully you got a good idea what I'm doing now. And then I'll go ahead and get some more done as far as the beach and some of these foreground waves. And then we even have the other photo, which is this one. We'll put that in yet too. And then that will get us pretty well done with the water and the ocean. Let's go ahead and get some more of this done, but I'll just speed paint some. Working with a small brush gives me the opportunity to lay down color changes rather quickly. It also gives me the opportunity to build patterns and textures early stages of the painting. If this was a traditional painting, this would be equivalent to about a 1/4 inch brush. Remember, I'm working on a 16 by 20 at 300 dpi. If I want to blend my colors, I can use the paint and blend, but I can also just turn off the tracing layer and then start blending what colors I already have laid down. Let's take a look. Okay, I'm going to start doing the other photo now. So what I need to do is I'm going to make another layer, and I'll just call it foreground water. And then I also need to go up and make this photo on. Now I'm going to take a look at it. Now I might make it a little bit bigger. So I'll grab my move tool, and I'm going to take this photo just up past that white spot right in here, just so it's covered up. So I'll be grabbing the photo itself, and I'll just make it bigger until I make it big enough. Because if the actual waves get a little bit bigger, that's not going to hurt us. That's for sure. They'll just actually appear closer right there, and then I'll leave it there. And then now I need to make this one my tracing layer right here. I'll press it. Now the other one will disappear, and now this one will become my tracing layer, and then this one will be now being able to trace from it. So I'll go back to my foreground water layer, and I'm ready to start painting again. As I'm working on this part of the water, I'm also keeping in mind that anything that I'm doing, I'm using the photograph as for my patterns and linear patterns also. This is very important, whether it be a curl of a wave or the water washing up onto the shore. There are specific linear patterns involved that I want to include. Okay, I got the water pretty well blocked in, but what we'll do now is work on the geese just to get them started. And I'll even paint them on their own layer just so we could move the painted goose of each one if we want to. But first I want to take them down a little bit. I noticed that in my opinion they're a little bit too big for the angle that they were photographed. One at a time. And this one could be probably a little bit bigger since it looks like it's flaring away. We'll take them all down a size first, then we'll move them around. Last one. Now this one might be better. Put this one even like this. Close to this one. Overlap two of them. Drop one down a little bit. That doesn't look bad. Okay, and we'll paint this one first down here. This is our first one. So I'm going to make it my tracing layer. And then that took it off of the photo and made it now. Then I'll go down here. As long as they're all in the group, they'll work. The foreground water, I'll just make a layer above it. Just call it Goose 1. Okay, but I'm going to take the, let's go take the opacity down a little bit. All right there. Just so we can see what we're painting. And then I'm going to go back to the Goose 1 and we're going to start painting. Now we're going to zoom way in. I'm going to make the brush small. But then now if we want to do individual feathers we can, or just render the end of the wing. That's up to you how much detail you'd want to put in. But we're going to start. I'm going to have that. Okay, the oiliness is the same. And then what I'm going to do is start painting. And I got to keep my lines fairly clean. And I'm just putting paint down now. That what I will do is clean things up later. We could do that freehand. We don't have to paint and draw each individual feather. We'll just give a little hint of individual feathers. I'm just painting right along the edge of the wing. And again, I'm trying to get as much contrast as I can, meaning that trying to touch it down as often as I can to pull out new colors. So I just don't use the same color over and over. And we can even go back in and put some little bit of feather separation freehand. Quick line close to the same colors. Classic snow goose. And sometimes, now these wingtips are pretty close to black. So depending on what kind of photograph you're working from, that's why I said you might want to change things around a little bit. Let's take a way down. Probably should be using a round. But if you ever want to do a painting like this, so far it's been possible with one brush. And being that these are on their own separate layer, I can also go back in and erase, clean up edges if I want to or need to. But again, like I said, if you want to keep everything on their own layers, it gives you a lot of options as you work. And if you're new to painting, you just want to turn out your first couple successful paintings and everything will go much smoother then. I'm going to paint around the leg. And later on, if you want, we could go back. I can make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to do these wingtips first. That's for me actually a little bit too brownish, but we'll live with it for now. Okay, we'll make it a little bit bigger. Let's do this first. We could artificially give his shadowed side a little bit of a hint of reflected light. There's things we could do freehand manually, no photograph help, and just to build like a feather pattern of some kind. Slowly work our way into the direct sun. Fast forward if you have to. But I'll do this first goose real time and do the rest speed painting. Put in his tail. There's a shadow of the leg right there. Easy to grab a wrong color. Working this small. A lot of daubing. But it'll give a basic texture pattern. So I'd rather work with a small brush for now, only because I'm already achieving some kind of a pattern and texture to it. It could go back over it. If you were painting traditionally, most artists will start out with just blocking it in, which is a really good way to go, but then slowly refine and define your shapes more and more, but when you're working from a photo like this, you really don't have to do that. Okay, there he is. We'll take out the daylight, which is the open spots. Well, let's see what we got. Hey, not bad. Okay. That'll give you a rough idea what they'll look like. That one's already painted. We'll paint these two speed painting. Now we're going to go back in. I'm going to finish up the water, and then we'll stop and do some spray and mist in real time. Let's get the geese and water done. I noticed that the goose on the left is the first and foremost goose, but it is a little bit smaller than the goose on the right. I can resize it, but I want to make sure that I select the photo that goes with it at the same time. This way I can resize them both together no matter what the end result. Okay, now we got our geese very well blocked in, the water's pretty well blocked in, and the sky is underway, but we can work on it any time since it's its own individual layer. Now what we're going to do next is help ourselves out if you want to go into the freehand stage. You could stop right here or keep painting from the photographs. We could give ourselves a little bit of help, and here's how we're going to do that. First, we're going to go and turn off all of our painting layers, and the sky also, and then the tree line, and then we're going to go back to our photographs and turn them on, and we're going to make sure they're 100%. Now you could do this anytime. If you're sure you're going to do freehand when you first start, you could do this then as soon as your photographs are done and ready to go. And now what we're going to do, there's all our photographs. We're going to turn off the canvas, and we're going to save this as is as a PNG. Go up to here, right here, up to File, click on that, hit Save As, and then save it as a PNG. The reason why is we don't want the background. We want to have a transparent background, and I'll show you why here in a minute. That's why I turned off the canvas. Okay, now what we'll do is now we will open this up. We need a window, reference images right here. Open that up, and here's our reference images right here. And then we need to press this right here, this button, to import an image, and we'll go back to where our reference images were right here, and now we'll open up that image, and there's our reference photo we could work from. Now here's the big difference about having it as a reference image. If I click on that right there, now this will open up into its own window, and what I could do with this though, I could close that down, and then I'm going to open this up, and there's our photo and our geese with no canvas background, and that's what we want. But now what I could do is, if I need colors to pull out of these photographs when I do the freehand work, now what I could do is go back to, I'll turn all of these off since we're freehand now, and then turn on the geese, the water. These are my duplicate copies of the foreground water and distant water, the tree line, and the sky. Now there's our complete painting. But now what I could do is, if I click on the eyedropper, I could then go over and pick out whatever color I want. Down here is the most recent color right here is that you picked. But now if I go up here as an eyedropper, I can pick the white. This color down here will change. I'll pick the blue, the whatever color, the sand color, any colors up in the geese, then this color will change and update to whatever color I'm picking out of my reference image panel. But if I take it back over the painting, it's going to immediately go back. Let's go on to the water. It's going to immediately go back to my brush. I take it over the reference panel, it turns into a color picker, or it will also then turn back into the brush as soon as I start painting. So this is a really quick, efficient way to pick colors out of your photographs and be able to paint at the same time without going back and forth, changing your tools from a color picker up here. Here's the color picker up here. and then this is your oil brushes right here, but you don't have to do that. Now this is picking any color from any part of the photograph. Now that we have that photograph made, I work from a specific set of color palettes. What we could also do then is bring that same photograph up by clicking this right here, the hamburger, and then click on that and then go down to color set right here and then hit create color set from image file, and then how many ever colors you want. If you want, let's go with 25 colors. Now we'll go up and we'll open up that same reference folder where we had our picture. I click on this and that's it. Now here's the colors that it came up with, 25 colors of this particular photograph we saved as a PNG. So we could either work from these colors here, or we could pull the colors right from the reference image out of our reference image panel. Now we're ready to start freehand. Okay, we're ready to do some freehand here. First I'm going to do our panel, and then I'm also going to go back to my original colors. I just wanted to show you how to obtain colors from your photographs several different ways. I'll go down here and my flyout, and I'll go back to mine, and then that's it. And what we will do now is do some freehand, and what I want to do is a little bit to the sky. Now keep in mind, since you have the sky on its own layer, you could go back in and even put a layer on top of that and then make up your own sky, completely revise this sky, take a sky from another photograph and put it in, but you just have to be careful. So the lighting is the same, the atmosphere is the same, and then it doesn't completely change the mood of your painting. Okay, now I'm going to first go down in the bottom, and I'm going to smooth out some of this dauby looking just gobs of paint and just clean it up a little bit and get it ready for the final mist and spray and what we're going to do with it to finish it up. But what I want to first do is take this goose right here and make it bigger, because it's the foreground goose, and right now it's a little bit small. So now again, just like I mentioned in the past, the only thing we have to do is make sure we grab both of them. That's this one right here, and then this one right here. Yeah, that's it. And then take these two, and then I'm going to resize both of them at the same time, and we'll make both of them bigger just to match about right there. Then now I can move it back to where it was, but it's going to be bigger, and we might even be able to make it a little bit bigger yet. Okay, we can stay with that now, but then if I turn off the painting, which is right here, I still have my photo in the exact same place. You can barely even tell the difference from when I turn it on and turn it off, that they're matched up pretty good. So now that I'll have that ready to go, I'll turn off the photograph and then turn back on the painting, and there he is, and then they're ready to go just the way they are. And now I'm going to go back out and clean up some of the water a little bit. And remember, when I'm blending these colors, what I'll probably do is just have the tracing layers off altogether and just start blending what colors I have, just to start cleaning it up a little bit. Let's just go ahead and do that in speed painting. I'm working with the edges now, just trying to soften them up a little bit and just to get ready for the splash of the waves. You can obviously keep the painterly look any way you want, as strong or as soft. Let's take a look. Okay, let's go over a few things here real quick. Just before we start the freehand, what I want to note is I'm going to start putting in these splashes with a spatter brush, and we'll import that brush and I'll show you how we're going to do that. But then also the spatter itself, we don't want to make it just all white and that's it, because that will pretty much project itself as all being on the same plane, and we want to create depth. So to do that, right in here especially, you can see splash that's more of a blue, and that's splash in the shadow, and then once it comes up out from behind the wave, it's going to start getting the colors of the water or the color of the sun. And that is right in here. It's the sandy color of the stirred up water, and we could also put some orange in to match the orange glow of the geese. But what I want to show you also then is from right here, about right in here, all the way out is already out of focus. So we want our tree line to be sharp, and then we can mist down these and diffuse these waves out in here only because we're going to add our mist in a little bit here. So you cannot see detail and hard contrast through mist or fog. But that will not be because our picture is out of focus. It will be because the mist is going to be limiting the detail and contrast of the painting. This is where we'll add most of our splash, right up in here, and then we can make it any way we want. But then to avoid creating brushes now, if you don't want to get involved in creating a brush from scratch, that's okay. But what we could do is just use a spatter brush, but then keep those spatters on their own layer so we could go back in and erase out what we don't want. Then we could construct the splash the way we want and not the way the brush dictates. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's bring in our new brush preset. Now what I did was already brought in a spatter 5. These will get out of our watercolor brushes. This is spatter 5 right here. And I just brought it in, but you can see it's kind of squarish. That wouldn't loan itself very well to a natural splash of crashing waves on a shoreline. So what we need to do is go up here and grab our watercolor brush right here, and then go down, and I already have in underneath the spatter category, these are all just default brushes. I already have spatter number 6 selected, and then go up to the hamburger up here, click on that, and then just hit copy brush preset. That's all we need to do in watercolors. Now go back to the oil brushes and then hit that same hamburger and now hit paste brush preset, and it'll come up as the first brush right here. We'll drag it down right next to 5, and then we're ready to go. Now this one is much more natural and this one is kind of squarish. So you can see the difference between the two. We need the natural randomness one. That's number 6. Now the only thing I want to do is hit this button right up here to reset all the default settings. I want it the way it was originally designed so I could go from there. Okay, let's move to the freehand layer, and we'll use that as our practice layer. I'll zoom in just a little bit and we'll see how our brush reacts. I'm going to select pure white just so we can really see what it's doing. And it's not doing anything I expected it to do. There's a slight linear pattern there, and plus it's throwing the paint way out left and right of my brush stroke, and I don't want that. I want to be able to control the scale of the splash and also where it's going. So what I need to do is go back here under stroke. First I want to get rid of tip tilt. What that will do is adjust the size depending on how you have your pen tilted, and I don't want any larger size than I need as far as what I'm working with. And then also the scatter is going to throw it left and right, and I'll just cut that way down to about 4. Now this is what I get, and I can adjust the scatter just a little bit more. That's not too bad there. And then the spacing is what is going to give me the space between each stamp. So if I want it to vary, I could do that also. If I turn it way up, just to give you a rough idea, now this is what I'll get. It's going to vary, and then plus it's also going to be somewhat thin. That may be too thin for a natural splash. So I'm going to cut it back down to about 20, and this is what I'll get. That's not bad. And then what I also want to do is the shape and grain. I'm going to take the angle jitter all the way up to 100, and then I'm going to put the rotation follow trajectory, and then now this is what I'll get, which is pretty much a nice random splash that I can control where I want. Okay, let's see what we got here. We'll turn off our freehand practice layer. I'm going to make a new layer. We'll just call it spatter 1. And then what I want to do is, this one right here is one of the most interesting splashes we'll be able to see. So that's right in here. We'll zoom into that. And again, I'm going to pull the colors right out of the painting. Since I did some custom blending, they may vary now from the photograph. So if I hit my Alt key it will turn into the color picker. The inside ring is the color I'm about to select. The outside ring is the current color I have. So with that in mind, I'm going to pull out a pretty bright color. We might even need to pull a little brighter color out than that, but I'll start with like the sandy color. And just to have an orange glow to it, I would say right there. Now, if I start my spatter, let's see what we could do. Here's our spatter up in here on our reference image. So if I start putting some spatter down, I can maybe make it a little bit bigger. And what I see though now is a little bit impasto, and I don't want that. I've been working flat the whole time. So I will just go up to, here's the window, hit right here, visual settings, or just F12. That's right here. I always keep it out. And I'm going to take my impasto all the way down to 0 and my gloss down to 0. Close that out, and that's it. And now we're getting a decent splash. But if I want to maybe make it a little bit bigger, I'm going to put a little wee bit more down, just like that. And then now you can see some, if you want to really follow the photo, there's some way up in here. That looks pretty good. But if I don't like the pattern I'm getting exactly with my brush, I could go back in and right here, hit the eraser icon of the same brush, and then go back in and take some of it out randomly also. And that will pull some paint back out, and then I'll make my random pattern even more random. And then this way, like say for example, if I start having some blues, what would be in the direct light, I may not want that, it won't look correct, then I could erase that part out. But we'll leave that there, that doesn't look too bad. And then I could even put some more in right here, and we could adjust from the photograph. We can make up our own splash, as long as it looks natural. I'll put some right in here. We got to go back to the paint, and then we'll make some right there. And what I want to do is feather this in to my soft brush strokes from before. And that's not looking too bad. I'm adjusting the pressure, adjusting the way I paint. And then now if I want some more white, I could go to a more of a pure white, that this could be the dirty water of the sandy stirred up water. And then now this might be the cleaner water. I'll go to just my off-white. It's a little bit brighter than anything out here, which some of the splash is. Now if I go back to this white, I could put this in front of what I'm working with. But then now that is kind of jumping out at me. In other words, I have a lot of really sharp, hard edges there up against a fairly soft background. But there is a way we can control that also. This is digital. Let's go back up to filter, then go down to Gaussian blur. And let's see, I had it on 10 the last time I used it. That's not even looking too bad there, but I could take it up a little bit more. And that's about it. So then now if I soften it down a little bit, it's destroying those real sharp edges, and it's going to make it look like it's a part of the painting instead of a layer floating above everything else. I'll hit apply, and that's it. And now if I zoom out, that's not looking too bad. I would keep that just the way it is. Being that it's on its own separate layer, we could constantly change anything. We could erase out some, put more in, and then go from there. I'm going to go ahead and do some of these in a speed painting just to get some done so we can move on to our mist stage of the painting. I'm keeping the spatter on their own layers as much as possible so I could go back in and use the lock transparency to add my orange. Let's take a look. Okay, I got enough of our spatter done that we could start working with a little bit of the mist. And now what I want to do is create some mist in this area right in here, but I can't just put down one layer of mist and that's it. We want to build it up in stages to create depth with it also. Now this would apply to any time you want to add like fog or mist to a scene or a painting. Now what I want to do is first I'll create a practice layer, but I want to have this layer behind all my spatter, because this spatter right here is going to be in the foreground in front of the mist, and I will create a practice layer just to show you what I mean. What I'm going to do is I have red here and I have a round hard. Now just say for example this line right here is going right across the surface of the water and the beach. And then this line here, I'd say about right in here, going up this way, is going to be how high the mist is going to go. So what we need to do is if we go way out here and extend it out as far as we can see, then this is one depth of the painting, this is another one, this is another one, this is another one. So if we follow these up, what we are going to do is create a layer of mist here, then another layer on top of that here, then another layer on top of that here, and then one more maybe final layer that you'll barely be able to see, but it'll kind of diffuse this area in here. But back in here, it's going to be diffusing a lot more. But then if we create depth with our mist, it'll look more believable. Let's go ahead and try that and see how we do. Okay, we'll create a new layer. Mist 1. I'll turn off our diagram. And then now I imported a cloud glaze from my watercolors, and the only thing I know I have to change because of it being a watercolor brush that I made, and if it's not up I could post it, but it should be up already on the free assets, and that is these should be okay, but shape and grain should be okay, but I have to go to paint, and I don't want any paper texture at all. I don't want the canvas to interfere with a very soft subtle mist that I'm going to try to create. So I turned the paper texture strength down to 0 and the paper texture contrast down to 0. Okay, now let's go ahead up and start way back, and we'll build up a few layers here on a couple of different layers themselves so we can control each layer. I'm going to turn it down a little bit, and I'm going to take it way down, and then I'm going to pull out a color about right in there, the light gray. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And I'm just going to start real soft. You can barely see it, and it's there. But keep in mind, we have to add this slowly because there's going to be plenty of layers going over top of this, which will even diffuse this even more. There's a little bit there. I'll take it up into my distant tree line. Now, if I turn it off, you can see how much it did. Now, you can see how much already it changed. So we'll leave that there, and then now I'm going to make another layer. And guess what? We'll call it Mist 2. Now I'm going to take a little wee bit of a lighter color. Maybe that one right there. Now I can compare the colors as to what I've used, outer ring, and what I'm about to pick, inner ring. So we'll pick that color now. And now we'll put it over. And I could do this random. You can see our ocean quickly disappearing, which the diffused waves will be okay. But then keep in mind, this is digital. I could go back in and change the opacity of whatever layer I would like. And then some of this I could take up even much further. And then now, being that the next layer of mist is still going to be behind this spatter is what I want, because now it's going to start thinning out because it's getting closer and closer to us. So I will make one more layer. Yes, good guess. Mist 3. And I'm going to make it a little wee bit lighter because it's coming at us. There we go. Outer ring was what I just used. Inner ring is what I'm about to pick. And I'm going to put a little wee bit more. And now what I could do is make this much higher since this mist is closer to us. Take it up in, barely noticeable. And that's it. And then I could put a little wee bit over this right here, but that would be barely noticeable. Let's pan out and see what we got. Yeah, that don't look bad. Just enough that we could see it, but if you want to tone it down, we could just take the opacity of the layer down, just like that, and put it on about 70, right there. Leave it there, and you can still see it, but it's not overpowering. We'll leave everything there like that. I got a good bit of spatter to put in the foreground, and we're already starting to wind down. Let's see what we could do to finish this painting up. I'm keeping the spatter on their own layers as much as possible so I could go back in with a transparency lock and touch up the different patches of spatter that I'd like to. This way I can add my orange to each spatter. Okay, let's go ahead and see what we have here. I went ahead and finished up most of the spray, spatter, and mist, but I'm going to do a couple of things just real time here just to show you one last tool we could use, and then also just to clean it up just a little bit. Now see how right in here there's a lot of extra mist in through here, which isn't too bad. Now I could tone that down a little bit. I just like to make it a little bit more evenly gradated. It's almost like a wall here, but then there's nothing in here. So I'm going to put a little wee bit more in here out through this sandbar, and then what I'm going to also do is maybe take the opacity down of the couple layers that will be behind it, just to open up that distant horizon line a little wee bit more. So what we will do is go down to Mist 3, and I'm going to add another one, and we'll just leave it layer 2. We know what it is. Now we're going to go back up and grab our cloud glaze, and I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to take it way down because I only want to take a little bit of time. We can make it bigger, and then I'm going to pull out a color a little wee bit lighter than this. Let's go with right there, and then I'm going to just try and just wash over this wave right here. I'm going to build it up just a couple places so it's obvious somewhere, just like that. Take a little bit more over that one. Okay, then now we're going to go back down to 3. Okay, there's it. We're going to take it down a little bit more. We'll just make it 50. We'll start from there. And we're going to make the other one down a little bit. And then the first one down. That opened up a little bit. I can actually even make it a little bit more, just so we can barely see the mist. Not right there. And then Mist 4 is right up here in front. That's this mist up in here, real light, subtle. That would be the closest to us, but it would also be somewhat transparent compared to going all the way back towards the distant tree line and the horizon line. And then now also one last thing. We have these splashes on their own layers, so that's good. Now here's the foreground one right here. I left this one on its own. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select it, but then I'm going to put the transparent lock on, aka lock transparency. Then I'm going to keep with the same brush, go to my orange, or what better yet I could do is even pull the color out of the geese just for color unity, and then go back down to the water and then put that same orange. Let me give it a little bit more and then take the color down so I can control the area, and then we're going to splash that same orange in some of these splashes here. That might be the different one. Yep, that's that one. We'll put the transparent lock on that one also. And then that's that one. We're going to put the transparent lock on that one. Give this one just a little bit because it's lower. And technically all the higher splash would be in the bright orange light. And then this one here, just see how this one's kind of floating above everything else. Transparent lock, and I'm going to tone this one down here. This one right in here, just a little bit. A little bit too bright white for as far as the way it was. And then there is that one. And that is the one we're looking for also. Transparent lock. That ties it in a little bit better. And now let's take it back out and see what we got. Hide our image. And I think that could be it. Now remember, again, we could take out the sky, put in our own sky, new sky, make the horizon line a little bit lighter, do whatever you want, but that horizon was fairly even in value. But otherwise, I would consider this one done. I hope you picked up something along the line. I try to include as many different techniques and options as I could, especially for those just getting started, to give you something to think about. And that would be it. So like I always say, until I see you out in the field or back at the studio, thanks for watching.